Hi, I'm Daniel Lucas, and welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years, and today I have my special guest. She is the author of the book A Case of Too Many Deaths, no other than Miss Nancy K. Napier. Welcome to Book 101, Miss Nancy, and can you please introduce more about yourself?
I would be happy to. I'm delighted to be with you today. I'm a long-time business professor at a university, 35 years, and done lots of nonfiction writing and research writing and journal articles and books. And in the last few years, I thought I would like to learn how to write fiction. So I've been trying to do that and published my first novel, which is a Case of Too Many Deaths that we will talk about. And I'm working on a second book, which will be about art crime in Vietnam. And so I hope to keep doing more books that take place in Vietnam because I have worked there for about 30 years. I helped to start up the country's first international standard business school. And then I've been continuing to do research and teaching over there for many years, and it's like a second home for me. So I would like to help people understand more about Vietnam and that it's more than the great food and a good vacation spot. It's so interesting, the people and the history. So that's where I'm headed towards. But the first effort of A Case of Too Many Deaths, I was excited to do and excited to talk to you about.
Certainly, Miss Nancy Napier, thank you so much for sharing your talents to the world. So, what the genetic evidence emerged that could explain the unusually high number of deaths in this case?
Of deaths in this book, in the book,
Yes, yes.
so the idea came from a case in Australia where a woman was convicted and was in prison for 25 years for killing her 4 children under the age of 2. And I caught my eye because over time, she kept saying, I'm not guilty, I'm not guilty. And over time, some research on genetic mutations started to come out, different parts of the world. And so then there was a question of whether that was the contributor to the deaths or did she kill them? And the argument was on the prosecution side, of course she killed them. How can 4 children in one family die? And they had people who testified from all over the world. But that was the start, the sort of the seed for the book here. I set it in the United States rather than Australia. So it's really a story of this young woman who's a lawyer, estranged from her parents. She gets a phone call from her mother who says, I have a sister, your aunt, she's in prison and her execution date is coming up. You're a lawyer. Can you help us? So this young woman wrestles with, do I want to get back with my family? But this is a relative I've never known. So she goes back and forth on all of that and then decides to try and help her aunt in prison get a new trial. So that's the basis of it.
Interesting indeed. In what ways did the case turn the daughter's life upside down, both personally and legally?
Exactly. So the daughter is a brand new attorney trying to find her way in a big law firm. And so she wanted to work on good cases, and she was given very simple ones to start with. She thought she could take this case to the law firm and ask them to help her, but to do it for free. And of course, they said, no, we can't possibly do anything like that, and sort of pushed her away. At the same time, she's getting this pressure from her mother to at least talk to the aunt and see if she could find another way to help her get a new trial. So the daughter goes to see the aunt in prison and feels a connection there that she didn't even feel with her own mother. So she's now struggling with, this is a person I've just met. I want to help. And my law firm is saying, no, we don't do free work for people. So she had to really push to show that she could get that there was reason to look at having a new trial. And on the other hand, she's got this aunt who says, okay, let's try one more time. But then she backs off and the aunt says, no, I don't think it's worth it. We've tried too many times over 25 years. I am okay with dying in the 6 weeks from now. And the daughter is fighting these two sides of things. And in the process, slowly starts to come around to get to know her parents again. And then, of course, there's a love interest in there, a man who becomes a good sounding board for her. And there's also a really fun character who is a retired Scottish librarian for the local university. So he turns out to be a really good researcher for her. And so she has to put all these different pieces together and confront the attorney general, who's the big prosecutor. So she's got legal struggles, she's got personal struggles, and it's just good fun. I found I have a number of friends who have worked in the legal profession, and I did a lot of research on the genetic mutation piece, and I love learning. So this was a great excuse to find out more about those two areas and then put them together.
Interesting indeed, Miss Nancy. So speaking of genetic, what specific genetic mutation or anomalies were suspected to be linked to the death?
It's very complicated, but the simple version is it turns out that the 4 children, 2 boys, 2 girls, and they each had different mutations. And so, and this is the chances of something like this happening are really, really unusual. So she finds out, and I don't want to give you the whole story, but
Spoilers.
she finds out, yeah, spoilers. She finds out that the aunt, the mother's side, had the mutated gene that went to the girls. But she
Oh.
needs to find out if the father, the biological father, had the gene that went to the boys. Well, after this trial, the father disappeared. So she's also got to go search for the father, and she thinks he's in Seattle. She finds him. He's homeless. He's living on the street. He wants nothing to do with her. And she has to convince him to have the genetic test so that she can say, actually, there was a reason why these children died, not because of her aunt killing them. So all that's going on as well. And I lived for a time in Seattle and love the city. So it was a great excuse to go
Yes.
back there and talk about Seattle as well. And anyway, so she has to bring all these pieces together while the clock is ticking down to
Yes.
the execution.
Interesting. So
Yeah.
how did forensic expert use genetic testing to support their theories in the courtroom?
Yeah, so that was basically it. If she could find out that both parents had this gene, that would be a piece to it. She also, the husband had, when all this happened, the husband found some diaries of the mother, and the diaries probably were what convicted her because they said things like, I need to help this child along his way. And the mother said, no, I was writing to God. I was writing to myself and to God. And the prosecutor said, no, that's clearly evidence that you were intentionally thinking about or letting them die. So our friend, the young lawyer, finds a scientist out of Texas who studies words and does content analysis of them in a very sophisticated manner. Sure enough, this exists. It goes on. And so the forensic scientist who studies text was able to look at the entire diaries instead of just a few pages that were very critical, but he looked at the whole thing and was able to come back and say, this is someone who is very anxious and very stressed, but not someone that seems to have an intention to do anything wrong by her children. So she had that piece of evidence that she had to find and get and bring together. She also, thanks to her Scottish librarian friend, he found two experts in genetics who did research, and they happened to be at this local university. So she was able to bring them in and one of them was on the witness stand. The prosecutor just destroys him. The second scientist, who is retired and says, no, I'm not up to date on the research as much, and yet she knew it very well. She has the disease called ALS, which made her, she was paralyzed, could still speak, could still think well, but they want then to convince her to go on the witness stand. Of course, she doesn't want to. She thinks people won't think she's credible. And so she becomes one of the key saviors, I guess, for the aunt's case. So you have the genetic piece, you have the text of the diaries piece, and then this rookie lawyer who wants to bring them all together. She finally convinces the partner in her law firm to take this case on. And of course, it turns out that he and the prosecutor have history, bad history. So there's that tension going on as well. And big courtroom scene at the end. And she makes some mistakes, and the judge is ready to call it off, but gives her one more chance, and she's able to do it. And the big secret, I won't tell you. You'll have to
No.
read the whole thing, but there's a big scene at the end where she convinces the jury. But does she convince them? She thinks she.
Lots of twists and turns, people. So, how did the defense counterclaims the genetics were the primary cause of the death?
Well, with these experts. So they brought the experts in who knew the research, so they could say, we have evidence that both parents had these bad genes. They found, I didn't know this, but they do, when babies are born, they take a little pinprick of blood out of their heels. And
Yes.
so they had blood samples from the children from 25 years before, 20 years before. And so they could look at that and found the mutated genes.
Wow.
Yeah.
How did the mother testimony contribute to unraveling the genetic mystery behind the death?
I didn't put the mother on the stand, so she did not testify at either the first case or the second case. And because the evidence was so strong in the first case about her diaries, and they had witnesses who said statistically it's impossible for 4 children in one family to die.
Yes.
Well, it turns out that in real life and in the book, there is a doctor in Italy who started collecting stories, information from families where children had died suddenly for no real explained reason. So many people thought this was sudden infant death syndrome, and that's what everyone thought when the first child died. When the other 3 died, that's when they got suspicious. And then when the husband discovers these diaries, people got suspicious that she was doing something. Well, by chance, our rookie lawyer finds this doctor in Italy who started basically collecting stories of families around the world. And I think at the time that I was writing this, he had collected not over 100, but it was close to it. So maybe 90, 89, something like that. So families were saying, here's what happened. We couldn't explain it. And over, it turned out there were some common symptoms that the children really hadn't shown any stress ahead of time. And so they began to discover that these other children had this similar, very unusual mutated gene. So it was, again, lots of different pieces that she was able to find. And frankly, that's what I found so intriguing, that this is what happened in the real story in Australia, that they got new evidence on the diaries, new evidence on the gene research, new evidence on the families who were experiencing this and could tell what had happened to their children over time. And so all of that came together, and I put it in the United States, just set it here. So
Truly intriguing, Miss Nancy. What would be your advice for those people out there who want to write their own novel, stories, or memoir?
I studied organizational creativity and I teach it in classes. But I decided in this process, I need something concrete to write from. In the academic world, I collect data, I report on the data. So I have something I can hold on to tell people about. When I started trying to write these novels, and I have 2 or 3 other ones that I need to go back and look, but I don't think they're very good. But when I found this case, this real case, and I could use that as my starting point, then I could let the imagination go wild, sort of to build it out. But I'm finding the same thing now in this next one I'm working on. I need some kind of real evidence that this sort of thing happens, and then I can build from it. So for me, at least, one aha moment in the last year or so is I need to look for stories around the world that happen and then use that as a beginning. So I have a file that I keep with interesting looking stories, and I say, okay, what about this is interesting? How somebody died, why someone died, and then go from there. So that's part of it. My other, and this may sound sort of negative in a way, but I've been writing for 30 years and I wrote academic articles. I then wrote things for leaders and managers that had to be easy to read. I thought, I've written forever. How can writing a novel that's just a different, new kind of writing? I had no idea how complicated it is, how complex, how difficult, how hard. And I'm studying writing. I'm taking a writing course right now with a woman who lives in Oxford, England, and teaches all of the students are all over the world. It's fabulous. And then I am working with a writing coach and a group there. So I'm trying to learn how to make this a more effective and efficient process for me. I spent 2 years on this book. I don't want to spend 2 years. So if I can cut that down and make it a little bit more efficient, and also better writing. I think this one was very well written, but I'm learning more about how to write even better, develop characters and that sort of thing. So I would say, so those are the hard parts. But I have to say, and I'm sure you have this in your world, when I'm in the middle of this, I lose track of time. And
True.
I absolutely love it. So I'm learning and I'm trying to get better at something, and I enjoy it so much. It's really, really been lovely to learn something at this stage. Finally, when I started during COVID to start thinking about this. I have a family of really good tennis players, and my sons, who are now in their 30s, would say, Mom, you need to learn tennis. And I would take a lesson for a day or two and say, no, I'll just be the cheerleader.
Yes.
I finally got serious about it a couple of years ago. So I'm trying really hard to learn tennis. So I'm a beginner at tennis. I'm a beginner at fiction writing. And because I'm a beginner, I think I'm a better teacher. So
True.
when I go into the classroom, I say, remember, for these people, what you're talking about is not something they do all the time. And so that, to have that beginner way of thinking, I think has been really helpful as a teacher. So
Well, Miss Nancy, thank you for your advice. And what are your short term and long term goals in
in
writing?
writing, well, the short-term goal right now is this one about art crime. It's at an editor, and I hope that when it comes back, it'll be pretty much finished, and then to get that one published and out there. I'm also, while I'm waiting, I'm outlining a new novel also that will take place in Vietnam. And a big part of it will be, I didn't know that Vietnam has so many Catholic churches. So I want to understand that and sort of build some history into that. So that will be a next step. So I'm hoping to have a couple, 3 books perhaps that take place in Vietnam, mysteries. And I call them light mysteries. I don't have a lot of blood. I don't have blood, guts, gore, torture, dead children, or anything like that. Well, other than this one. But so they're light mysteries, but in a place I know and love. So that will be what I work on. The problem is I keep collecting these ideas for stories, and I probably have another 5 or 6 or 8 that I'd like to do. And so that's another reason to try and get better at this so that I can be a little more effective in my process of writing. So to just make it not take me so long, not that I want to turn it into a speed competitive kind of thing, but I just want to get better at it. And so that's a longer term goal. But short term is another couple of books in Vietnam at least, and we'll see where they go. So
Good luck to your goals, Miss Nancy, and looking forward for more and more empowering books to come. Can you read one of your favorite chapter of your book? One
oh my,
paragraph.
you should have warned me.
As your
Um,
favorite.
favorite. They may be too long to read a whole chapter, but
Just give one or 2 or 3 paragraph.
yeah. So she let's see. Well, I'll just start at the beginning actually because that's kind of fun. This is early morning on Sunday, April 9th, 2006. Anticipating a long run in the eastern Washington foothills outside of Surrey, Emma Raddell laced her running shoes, tucked her bushy auburn hair under a headband, and glanced at her aquarium. Hildegard, her magnificent zebrafish, stared at her because, of course, fish stare. Then she saw Constantine and choked. Constantine, the tiny neon tetra, floated on the surface. Emma scooped the carcass into a Tupperware container, a makeshift coffin for her longtime friend. A quiet, non demanding friend, to be sure, but for Emma, that was as close as it got these days. Yoda, her 15-year-old rescue dog, had died 3 months before, and she shuddered thinking of her weeks-long grief. So anyway, it goes from there. So she is looking for friends, family, connection, and right now she starts with fish. And then she does get a dog. So she is a very good dog. So one other funny point to me, piece of trivia, when I was working on this book, I read a science journal that sure enough, fish, this particular breed of fish, can show empathy with each other. And I thought,
Mm,
oh my gosh, so maybe the fish really were friends, more friendly
true.
to her. So yeah,
Just like Dory.
yeah, there you go.
Finding Dory. So, Miss
Yeah,
Nancy, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, Food 101, in its 5th season. People, 5th season with Chef Alessandro, one of the executive chef in one of the 5-star hotel in downtown Toronto. Please do listen to our latest episode. We are reading our letter senders all over the
great,
world. So,
great,
Food 101, wherever you listen your podcast.
lovely.
So, Miss Nancy, in what ways could this case influence future legal standards for incorporating genetic data in the courtrooms?
In what way could the book
Yes, in the book
help?
itself.
I think what I would like to do is and some of the ideas in here were sort of complex, but to
True.
put them in layperson language and show the impact that it can have on a family in this case and friends. But it's taking something that's complex or a real legal case that's complex, but turning it into very accessible language and making a story out of it. So that's back to your earlier question. I guess that would be one of my long-term goals is to learn how to do that well.
Certainly. Can you do the case of Mr. Donald Trump too?
No, we're not talking politics here. You're in
No
Canada, you know
politics.
enough about that.
Miss Nancy Napier, thank you so much for sharing your talents to the world. And we are looking forward for more and more intriguing novels to come. So can you please invite our listeners to support all your books or upcoming books?
Yes, I will. As soon as I know about them, I will let you know. I appreciate your interest so much.
Yes. So where they can buy your book, Miss Nancy?
It's on Amazon, and you would just see the title, A Case of Too Many Deaths, or they can go to my website at nancyknapier.com, and all the books I've written are there. So if you want books about creativity, you'll find one there.
Yes, people that support Miss Nancy Napier because if you support her more and more, as I said, more empowering books like this to come. So, Miss Nancy, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Daniel. It's been delightful. You're a good interviewer.
More to come, people. See you soon. Thank you, Miss Nancy, and